27th at 10 o'clock to continue talking about the Loon Center. Administrator Conway, please give us the synopsis of the situation.
Okay, so last week we had a conversation with MMB and the DNR and LCCMR. And it came to all of our attention, something we didn't know was the legislative statute language between MMB and LCCMR were conflicting. And the potential, strong potential of the 2.8 million from LCCMR would be gone. Or they'd have to fight legislation for it and try and get the position of, first position of securing funds should the Loon Center fail. Would go to MMB, and LCCMR were saying, no, we also need first position. However, let me back that up. The city's responsibility is to be the fiduciary and understand that all money is accounted for the development of the Loon Center. So with the lack of 2.8 million, I brought it to the attention of the city council because you need to know. Well, in many communications yesterday, I received an email from Roger from the MMB, and I'm just going to read it. He said if the ground lease is valued at $703,000, and that is the fair market value, the city would not have to back the rest of the grant. The taxpayers would unfortunately have to make up the difference. So with that and the 2.5 million with the MMB, I mean, it comes down to the fair market value, which potentially could reduce our responsibility if in the event that the Loon Center would not succeed, down to fair market value. And that puts us in a much better position to ride out the wave, if you will, on the 2.8.
John, is there anything you want to put in or add at the microphone?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. John Mobeck, National Loon Center. As Lori mentioned, I think there's one of the things I want to make sure everybody knows is that on both the MMB side, LCCMR, both of these entities have always supported and been very, they've been very supportive of our project. I think that's going to continue. So even though we found this conflict in language that appears to present a challenge, I still believe that we're going to figure out how to make this work with LCCMR. They understandably have shared that there's a concern that may not be overcome, but I'll say even if that were to happen, that if we lost that funding, I hope and I expect that we will figure out a way with LCCMR. Again, the Legislative Citizen Commission, Minnesota Resources has been very supportive. A lot of people across the state are behind this project, as you know, including those who were behind it in 2019 when we received that grant. Mm-hmm. So I expect that they will continue to fight for us to receive those funds. It might take some pretty creative thinking about how to overcome that kind of technical, we'll call it a technical hurdle. But in any case, I do think, given our support down there, that we'll overcome that. If we didn't, then the simple answer right now today, I would say, is that it would be added to our construction financing. Okay. So that if we don't get those funds, we would put it into a construction financing loan and then work to find fundraising to replace that, of course, over time. But it won't stop the project from happening. Okay. Right now, as you've seen the updates, we're 5 months away from the building being wrapped. There's a lot of activity. The solar foundations are going in right now. The elevator shaft is rising this week. The paving will happen next month. The buildings structurally start to go up in August, around August 1st. But all that means we continue to have a lot of these hurdles. I'm talking to some of you before this. These hurdles have made it more challenging for us. As you know, there's been many hurdles along the way for this project, and yep. This is just one of them. So our hope is that you'll continue to support us, allow us to facilitate these expense reimbursements through the MMB, through the bonding bill funding, and continue to get this project done.
Perfect. Thank you, John.
John, can I ask you a question?
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Is there any contention between the two legislative bodies, or is it just this tiny detail of wording that has got them kind of anxious?
I would say no, there's no contention, and what I observe is understandably, folks from both the MMB and from LCCMR make it, like looking at the letter of the law and abiding by the letter of law, and I think doing everything in terms of their due diligence in what they're supposed to do to steward Minnesota's money. I don't think they're doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. In fact, they just found a conflict, I think, that none of us really could foresee, but there's no conflict between the two entities, and that's why I believe we'll work to figure it out. But again, and if it doesn't work out, because the law is the law, it would be strange to me that the LCCMR funding that all these folks across the state had promised would be lost due to this sort of technical conflict between these things. But it's possible, and if it was, I don't think it'd be the fault of anybody. It would be them actually just reading the law as it's supposed to be and doing their job as officials of the, or employees of the state.
Does anyone have any more questions for John before I go back to Lori real quick?
May I?
Yeah.
So John, it sounds like everybody still supports it, and that's excellent. The parties at the table likely have had conversation about what ifs on the 2.8.
Yeah.
Can you expand on the what ifs? But before that, can you help me understand the term of the 2.8? So what is the kickoff or the intended target timeline to use those funds so that we don't lose it if they can figure out a statutory fix to this language?
Great minds think alike, because that's
Yeah.
where I was going next. So thank you,
those
Robin.
Those are two great questions, of course, and the first is there's a deadline on the LCCMR funding of June 30th, before which we have to have incurred the costs. We've already incurred those costs. I can tell you the construction project, as you see, is going. I shared with you the cash flow projections that are more than $1 million a month. So we're spending a lot of our money now in order to keep the project going. That is reimbursable. All the construction-related things are reimbursable from LCCMR as long as they incur and they're eligible expenses before June 30th. So we won't have a problem meeting that goal of June 30th to incur the costs for that. Then we work with LCCMR to do the other steps in the process to be able to submit reimbursements and so forth. But June 30th is the deadline for that, which we'll hit. The first, now I'm trying to remember the first part of the question. Oh, what happens if we lose the 2.8 million? So essentially.
Or is there, what is the party's plan to help try to rectify the law, or the language, if there's an opportunity? And if not, what is the alternative funding string that you're looking towards to help fill this gap?
So I'll say I can speak to what I've observed from both MMB and the DNR staff involved as well, I'll mention, and of course the LCCMR. All of them are discussing ways in which they can creatively address this. So far, they haven't found the right answer with respect to the laws that are in place. It just happens that these two funding sources have conflicting regulations or requirements. That is the way the law is written. However, I do believe, one, they're all really great, both supporters of this project, but also really great, again, stewards of Minnesota's money. I would say if you observe how they're doing things, you would say people are doing a good job of making sure that this, I could tell you, we haven't received these funds yet.
Can I interrupt you real quick, John?
Sure.
I believe that we're not the only unique situation where we're caught in this legal definition lingo. I think there's a few other projects right now across the state, from what I've been told and have heard, that are also in the same predicament that we are in right now from this past legislative session. So we're not the only one, I think, in this problem.
And I think, and I can't speak to other projects, although I know other projects have both bonding funds and funding from, well, actually, I can't even say whether or not they have LCCMR and bonding funds. I don't know that, but I do know that the state officials work really hard to make sure that they can get the money to the recipients in a way that doesn't conflict with the law, which is what they're supposed to do.
Correct. Did that answer your question, Robin?
Then the last part is, what is the alternatives? And maybe that's everybody.
Yeah, so the alternatives, if, let's say that there isn't a resolution to that conflict, and that's possible, that's why, that's part of the reason why we're having this meeting today. But if that did not happen, there are two things that would have to happen from our point of view. Number one is we would immediately extend our construction financing, which although we've only had a few days, so I can't show you that financing yet. But we would add it to our financing. I have a high degree of confidence we could do that. given the value of this project, the land, everything else that we've got. I'll leave it at that because that can go down roads we don't need to go down. But in any case, we would probably replace that with construction financing in the short term. So we knew we had the money to complete the project.
Sure.
Number two is we would then raise funding privately from private individuals and foundations behind that in order to pay that off as soon as we can, just like any of the rest of our construction financing.
And it
But
looks
our
like-
goal is to make sure that the project is complete. The construction team can't be stopped. The construction team has to wrap this building before the winter, so we can open it next spring, which is the goal and the timeline. Everybody's on the same page with that.
When did we last meet, Lori, John, and myself? When did we have that meeting in the conference room? Well, since then, it looks like your exhibit sponsorships and naming rights and private individual donations and whatever, those numbers are going up.
Yeah.
So you're working very hard to bring money in as
It's way
well.
easier to bring in money now when people see what's going on over
Correct.
there. I think everybody
Correct.
expected that,
So just accolades to you for continuing that aspect of raising funds.
Yep.
Just so my understanding, and so it's clear, is the city fronting money out first and then we're expecting to get reimbursed? Or are we gonna get the check from the state and then we're passing it along?
The city has to produce the check to the Loon Center, and then we turn that check over to the state for reimbursement.
Okay, just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Yeah, and that's an important thing is that the city does technically
Correct.
pay the Loon Center. The state then, through this agreement, pays the city.
Yep. And I know we've worked very hard at that contract. If anything were to happen, we would get reimbursed by the Loon Center and whatever. I'm still
Yeah.
feeling comfortable myself.
I feel like we have a really solid ground lease agreement. It's been reviewed by everybody, I
Yeah.
believe, else, MMB, through our attorneys, your attorney. I think it's pretty solid.
Since nothing's changed, so to say, since we've made the last motion, do we need to make a new motion or can we there's consensus to continue? I don't know what we want to do because we've made this
Because
motion
we've
like 3 or 4
already-
times.
Yeah, we already have a resolution of approval on it. The reason for having this meeting was to share the new information of the 2.8 LCCMR funding. And as long as you're staying the course, I don't believe a new motion is made.
Robin,
Just
how are
that
you?
you're aware.
Robin, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good.
Okay, Sandy, yourself?
I feel fine with this.
Jamie?
I feel good. Just one quick question for you. The private individual foundational, 5.6 million, and the exhibit sponsorship naming rights, 7 million. When will that money start coming into you guys?
It already is.
Okay.
2.5 of it already has.
Okay.
And the rest of it over the next several months, leading up to November, when we expect all those exhibit sponsorships will be in place. And that's something that's, again, being fronted by construction financing.
And then the work is going to continue inside during the winter?
Yep, that's when the interior work, electrical and interior work, and then the exhibits actually don't go in until later on in the spring, March, April, I think is when the exhibits actually begin to be installed.
Perfect. I'm feeling comfortable myself. Monica or Sarah, anything from you two before we adjourn?
No, I don't have anything to add. Thanks for holding this, and city folks, you asked great questions, and I have the resolution and everything, so I will proceed with MMB for requesting the release of funds. I do want to restate that moving forward, we don't know what the resolution is or if there is a resolution. So as long as everyone is comfortable knowing that the LCCMR funds may go away, and NLC has a plan, I'm watching this and I see everybody is comfortable. I mean, we're ready to move forward with the MMB award if that's
Perfect. We're ready for the money, so,
great.
yeah, we'll take it.
I will let you know. I'll stay in touch with Lori I'll
Thank
have to
you.
get the funds released. That may take the rest of this week into next week to get them released and get them set up. And then we'll be ready to encumber funds and execute the grant contract.
Understood. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank
Staff,
you.
do you have any last minute questions? Lori, Char? All right, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion, there's a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned at 10:15.